What's up everyone, and thank you for stopping by the channel. Today's project is this Husqvarna edger. The problem is that after replacing the primer bulb, it simply will not start. Let's take a good look at it, find out what's wrong with it, and hopefully we can fix it. In this video, we try and repair this edger. However, it may not be the exact same repair you need to make to yours. We'll explore other options later in the video. This edger was used commercially and was used a lot during the mowing season. So much so that at some point the primer bulb finally broke and the previous owner decided to save some money and replace the bulb themselves. Unfortunately, after the job was done, it didn't want to start. So from the information we have, more than likely the problem is that something didn't go right when the primer bulb was replaced. But it's best that we can confirm the basics first to avoid doing extra work. If we remove the fill cap and look inside the tank, we can see that the fill filter is still in place. However, it's not in the best location. It should be further forward in the tank. Now this isn't the reason why the engine won't start, but we'll move the filter anyway so we can use all the fuel in the tank when we finally get it running. Since there wasn't any fuel in the tank, we'll put some in. Prime the fuel system, then try starting it and see what happens. Okay, so it looks like the primer bulb isn't working like it's supposed to, so we're definitely going to need to look at it for a problem. Just to make sure, we'll look in the tank and press the bulb and see if there's any fuel moving. Now it looks like there's nothing happening, so we know there's a problem with the bulb. To get to the carburetor and the primer bulb, we need to remove the top cover. We press the bulb again, we should see fuel moving through the lines, but nothing is happening. The longer port at the bottom should go to the fuel tank, and the short port on top is supposed to go to the carb. However, if we look from a different angle, we can see that the lines are definitely backwards. Now that's obviously the reason why it won't start, but it's at this point we realize there's even more problems. When pull starting it, the carb starts to leak massive amounts of fuel, which is not a good sign. Let's tackle the primer bulb first. Let's switch lines, try priming the fuel system, and see if it's working like it's supposed to. And if it is, we'll try starting it. Unfortunately, it's even worse now as the bulb is getting stuck in the down position. The only way to get the bulb back in shape is remove the line to the carb. If we press the bulb with no fuel line, it works fine, so that means the lines at the carb needs looking at. Just out of curiosity, let's try starting it and see if anything changes. As you can see, it didn't even try to start. Before we go any further, let's put some fuel in the filter base and see if the engine will even run. Well, it ran a lot longer than it was supposed to considering the small amount of fuel we put in the filter base. And since the engine is working, we can continue with the repair. Let's take off the filter base and take a better look at the lines going to the carb. Don't lose the gaskets on either side of the carb, otherwise you will have a difficult time getting the engine to run properly. Well, the fuel line at the rear of the carb just fell off, which means it's a bit loose. I've never dealt with this type of carb, but I do believe the two fuel lines on the carb are backwards. So let's swap them and see if the primer bulb works like it should. And it looks like that was the problem, as the primer is helping to draw fuel from the tank to the carb and to the primer bulb and finally back to the tank just like it's supposed to. Now it's time for the difficult part, which is to put the carb back on the engine and hopefully we can finally get it started. Another reason why the primer bulb wouldn't be working is if the fuel line has collapsed in the tank due to ethanol damage. The fix is course replace the fuel lines and to only use 100% gas in your mix. This fuel line also came off the top port on the primer, so it's definitely really loose and will need to be replaced. Well, the throttle cable just got stuck wide open. I should have tested it before starting it. The cable should have been ran through a guide, so let's put it back on and then try that again. Well, it seems to be running just fine now. It seems when the primer bulb was replaced, the fuel lines got crossed up and that was the reason why the engine didn't start. In the future, I would suggest taking pictures or taking notes on how the fuel lines were ran. Otherwise, you'll need to rely on the internet to help you out. The other option would be to try and replace the fuel lines one at a time, which may not work depending on how your carb is designed. So my question is, have you ever gotten your fuel lines mixed up before? Sometimes you're short on time or you're just not 100% sure how the lines were originally ran and you put them back to the best of your knowledge. I've done it more than once, but I'm curious about your answer. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate your time. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, and I'll see you in the next video.